Hi everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the Google Ads course. This week we're going to be talking about conversion tracking and management. So conversion tracking shows you what happens after a customer interacts with your ads, whether they purchased a product, signed up for a newsletter, called your business, or downloaded your app. When a customer completes an action that you have defined as valuable to your business, these customer actions are called conversions. So you manually input your conversions into Google Ads, and then it optimizes for those conversions accordingly depending on your campaign setup and the bid strategy you have chosen. It endeavors to do its best to select to get you as many conversions dependent on what bid strategy you were looking at. So if you haven't checked out last week's class yet, check that out first, because we go through all of the different bid strategies that are really important ahead of to understand ahead of this optimization for conversions within your campaigns. So why do you need tracking? So you need to find out which keywords, ads, ad groups, and campaigns are best at driving valuable customer activity. So if you have a ton of campaigns set up and you don't have your tracking set up, it is very difficult for you to know which keywords, which campaigns are actually driving revenue for your business. You also want to be able to understand your return on investment and make better informed decisions about your ad spend. So if one campaign is returning twice as much as another campaign, you want to double down on the one that's working and remove spend from the one that isn't working. Decisions like that, and that is a very basic example, but decisions like that cannot be made in with anything other than your gut without your data in place, and that data comes from your tracking and your conversion optimization in place. You can't use smart bidding strategies such as maximize conversions or target cost per acquisition and target return on ad spend without your conversion set up accurately. So you're also limited in the bid strategies that you can use that we discussed last week. And those automatically optimize your campaigns according to your business goals. So typically you would get a lot more out of some of these bidding strategies, the smart bidding strategies, than you would the manual ones at this point. The manual ones are a little bit outdated unless you've got very limited data to work with. So conversion tracking, an absolute must to be able to use the smart bidding strategies as well. So what are the types of conversions? Well, the first and foremost one that we are all probably most familiar with is website actions. So that's looking at your purchases, your sign-ups, and other actions that customers complete on your website. Then there's phone calls. These can be calls directly from your ads, calls to a phone number on your website, and clicks on a phone number on your mobile website as well. App installs, the very same. Installs of your Android or iOS mobile apps and purchases or other activity within the apps as well. And then you can also look at local actions. So actions that are counted whenever people interact with an ad that's specific to a physical location or store. So these are some of the types of conversions that you can look at. Probably the most popular are you're going to either have app installs and phone calls or web actions and phone calls. So you can look at mix and matching these as well, depending on your business. Some businesses would have all four of these. They have a website, they have an app, they have a phone number, and they have local actions to look at as well. So you can use it. You're not stuck to just one type. You can layer these according to your needs. So when you're in your Google Ad account, this is where you set up a conversion. So firstly, you go over here to Tools and Settings, go to the Measurement tab and click Conversions, and then you're met with this screen in here where you can see Conversion Actions and a little plus symbol here. When you click on that, you're brought through to a page to start setting up. That looks like this. So you get your opportunity here to start tracking conversions. So when you want to look at the type of conversion you want to track, it gives you these four options: website, app, phone calls, or import. Website, again, you can track actions on your website, your app, tracking actions on your app. Phone calls, you can track calls from your ads or website. This particular account doesn't need the local one, so this this hasn't come up in this scenario, but you can also import your tracking directly from Google Analytics. So if you have your tracking already set up and running accurately within your Google Analytics account or another source, you can just connect those to Google Ads so that you can get those done. You can just synchronize them to import your conversions. Phone calls, they don't need any kind of code to track for the most part, because typically you can use these as a call from the ad. So you can make it a call from the ad or from your website. So typically there's not very much setup process involved in the phone call side of things. It's the app and the website side of things where things can get a little bit more complicated. The website being the most popular one is the one I'm going to go through today, with an example of how to use Google Tag Manager, which is the tool I use to implement all tracking and conversions across the board. So once you select on one of those, so I select website in this instance, you get brought to this page where you can select the category of what you want to track. So you could say you want to track a purchase, add to basket, begin checkout, subscribe, a contact, a lead. These are pretty much endless. So it's typically sales or leads, but you can make a decision there. Then you can manually type in the conversion name. So if you want it to be purchased at X value, whatever you want to put in there so that you can easily recognize it yourself. Then you can add the value of it. That's just underneath this little piece here, but you can add a value for each conversion. You can say, okay, there's no value, but that's not recommended, or you can say it's the same. Also, you can decide how you're going to count your actions here as well. So say, for example, someone goes to your website and they take multiple actions. Well, in a purchase scenario, that's fine. You want to record every single one of them because each purchase is valuable. But say if it came to signing up to the newsletter and they made a mistake in it, or something happened where it kept counting it more than once. In that instance, it might be better just to click once here so that you only count each person once. If they sign up for the newsletter 2 or 3 times in error, then at least you're only counting them once, because they are only one sign up in that instance. You can also look here at your view through windows. So you can click through conversion window, your view through, and including conversions, and your attribution model. Now we'll be talking about attribution models as well in a moment, but you can select these manually here. So this essentially means is that the window of time in which a person has clicked, will they still be tracked for this conversion? So if someone clicked on your ad last week and then they actually only made the purchase today, that they would be still counted because they're within that window. So you can take a look at this and decipher how best to format your conversion. So just in reflection there on the attribution models, most advertisers measure the success of their online advertising on the last click basis. So you can see here this attribution model on the previous slide is defaulted to last click. And essentially what that means is that they will give all the credit for a conversion to the last clicked ad and corresponding keyword. Attribution models can give you more control over how you credit each ad interaction gets for your conversion. So this allows you to look at different things. So on the assumption of the last click, just to put it in a little bit of context, say for example you were searching for something that was a little bit more expensive. You were doing a lot more research than you may have done if the item was a much lower cost. For argument's sake, let's use a car in this example. You're looking for a new car, you're browsing around, you're shopping around, you are looking for the best price because it is a high ticket item. You look at 5 different ads, you're back and forth looking through them all, and eventually you convert on one, and that one is attributed the last click. So the last click, you may have gone into this particular business's ads 6 or 7 times at this point because you're doing so much research and you're going back and forth, back and forth. So you may have clicked on their ads multiple times, and this is normal. This is normal shopping behavior. But it's only going to attribute the conversion to the last click you made. In that scenario, you haven't given any credit to the other adverts that were part of the research process. And attribution modeling lets you look at different ways of saying, oh, well, actually, I'll weight X amount of the conversion on the first click or the last click or time based. So there's lots of different ones, and we'll discuss those here. So the first one is, well, the first benefit is that it matches your business. You can use a model that works best for how people search for what you offer. You can improve your bidding, so you can optimize your bids based on better understanding of how your ads perform as well. So these are the different types of attribution that you can look at. Last click, again, that's the default, and it gives all credit for the conversion to the last clicked ad and keyword. The first click gives all the credit for the conversion to the first clicked ad and keyword. Again, in that research process, people are moving backwards and forwards through your adverts, through other people's adverts as well. So in this scenario, it's giving the credit to the first search. Linear, this distributes the credit for the conversions equally across all ad interactions. So if 5 adverts were involved in this purchase, then it is distributed equally. Time decay, this gives more credit to ad interactions that happened closer in time to the conversion. So say, for example, there was a 2-week period and multiple touch points on the ads because, again, there was a volume of research involved in your product. This kind of scales it heavier and heavier closer to the purchase time. Position based, this gives 40% of credit to both the first and last ad interactions and the corresponding keywords, with the remaining 20% spread across the other interactions on the path. This is one I don't use too often, but it does have its merits here and there. It distributes it well. For me, I prefer the linear approach than the position-based, but that's just personal preference. But you can look at this as well in terms of optimizing and attributing. Also, you can look at data-driven. This distributes credit for the conversions based on your past data for this conversion action. This is great. This is part of the machine learning that we're seeing Google move towards all the time, but this is only available to accounts with enough data. So you can look at that one as well, but make sure that if you're a new account that you don't intend to depend on it until you build up enough data for it. So then once you've selected what attribution model you want, you've selected all of those pieces, you get met with this page to continue creating your conversion action. And you can set up the tracking from here depending on which option you want to use. Now, installing the tag yourself, that's fine. You just add the piece of code to the relevant page on the website or the relevant section depending on your website. You can email the tag to your developer just to implement it, or my personal favorite is to use Google Tag Manager. I'll go through using Google Tag Manager today because I feel it's the best for most businesses. My argument really for Google Tag Manager is that if you get the hang of it, you only need to install it on your website once, and then from there you can just track lots of different things without messing with the code on your website, so you don't end up making any mistakes on your website that put your website down or impact anything there. And Google Tag Manager also gives you far more flexibility in terms of what you can track. It gives you almost ideas as well. So we look at that in a little bit more detail in a moment. When you click on using Google Tag Manager, it gives you a conversion ID and a conversion label. These are just long strings of numbers and letters mismatched together. So when we are over in Google Tag Manager, you'll see I'll be discussing where to input a conversion ID and a conversion label. So it's just important that you note that this is where you find those in your setup process. So now we're going to just jump over to Google Tag Manager. So as you can see, Google Tag Manager here has tags, triggers, and variables. So if you want to set up a piece of code onto your website from Google Ads and you're using Google Tag Manager, it's important to really know what tags and triggers are. Variables aren't as important in this scenario right now. A tag is the piece of code that you want to put on your website, and a trigger is when you want that piece of code to fire. So in this instance, the piece of code that we want to put on our website is a tag from Google Ads. So let's just type in Google Ads here as an example. So when you click on tag configuration, you can see over here that because it's part of the Google ecosystem and the Google family, it already has the opportunity for you to just click on Google Ads conversion tracking. But as you can see here, if you're using Google Tag Manager across the board for your entire business, it can integrate and add the tags from nearly every service out there. And where it doesn't, for example, with Facebook ads, you can just use the custom HTML option to input that. So it's a very flexible tool, even if it doesn't have an obvious option for a certain thing. But in this scenario, we do. So we can see Google Ads conversion tracking. So you can see here your conversion ID and conversion label and your conversion value. So you can add all of this information in. As we saw on the slide previously, before we jumped into Google Tag Manager, the conversion ID, the mismatch of numbers and things, you would just copy and paste these in here. And that is all you'd need to do. You can put in a conversion value if you want, a transaction ID, a currency code, and you can also look at these advanced settings if you want. But for the vast majority of scenarios, just putting in this bit of data is enough for your business. Then you can determine where it's triggered. So let's just say, for example, that this is a purchase or a lead. We'll say purchase for now. So you know that when someone is going to convert, they hit the thank you page. So you could use a page view as the trigger in this example. But there is lots of different trigger opportunities here as well. So you could say, okay, only when they've been on a page for X amount of time, when they've watched a video, when they've submitted a form, when an element becomes visible. So sometimes when you go through to say, when you make a purchase, at the end it just says, Joe, your order has been confirmed. So when that element becomes visible, then that means they have purchased. So you can look at these actions on your website and determine what happens when someone purchases that is unique in that scenario. So it might be the thank you page, it might be a specific URL they end up on, it might just be that they end up with that order confirmation message. But according to that, you can say, well, that is unique in that scenario, so that is going to be my trigger. That is when I'm going to say to Google Ads, okay, this has happened, so you need to make this trigger go off to fire the tag, which is the tracker, and then it notifies Google Ads and it populates itself into your conversions tab. In this example, I'm just going to show you page view, and it might be just some page views, and you can see here there's lots of different variables on that. So you can say, okay, well, I'm looking at the refer, the page URL, or all these different things. But in this instance, we're just saying that if the page URL contains thank you, then we know someone has taken this action. So I'm just going to title this so we can see what it is. Thank you page reached. And save. So here now, within our purchase, we can see that this Google tag with the conversion ID and the conversion label that we were given inside Google Ads will track one conversion when this trigger happens. So when the thank you page is reached, it will send a notification back and it will recognize that as a conversion. Now there's tons of different ways you can mix and match these. So you can say thank you page reached, but only if the page before it or the refer was a specific page. Or you can say everyone who went to the thank you page with the exception of in this scenario. So it's a really powerful tool to be able to layer these parts of your tracking together so you can get really integrated into your website. Google Tag Manager will allow you both to have very easy tracking setup like I just showed you there with we just adding in your tag and you're just assigning it to a specific page, but you will have a lot more flexibility depending on your business. Every business is different and every website is different. So being able to use Google Tag Manager or a tool like this to layer in your different triggers, to layer in your different tags is extremely important in looking at your tracking and getting your conversions right. Conversion management is a huge part of your Google Ads and it's really important to look at it accurately. Once you have done this, you can just hit save. I didn't populate these details, but as soon as you have it saved, you can hit submit and publish. But you also have this preview option. So Google Tag Manager has a built-in debugger essentially, which is great. So you can hit preview, you can type in your website, you can go through the process that you're trying to track yourself, and it will tell you if it is tracking or firing the triggers accurately throughout. What it would also do is say to you, okay, it didn't fire here, but this is what you should have put in to make it fire. So you can look at, okay, oh, I should have said that it's this URL or this referrer or this click, or so you can look into the data as well. It will feed back a lot of information at you as well. The other thing that you can always look at, and I'll show you here, is when you're looking at your tracking, the inspect tool on Google Chrome. So if you right click and hit inspect, it will bring up a large amount of data here on the sidebar, but you can hover over a particular element, and I clicked on it 1 second there now. So when you go over a particular element, what will happen is you can see here that it's highlighting it. So you can see what the button name was and all of these different things. So you can get some of the data in here if you're looking for really specific things. So you're saying, okay, as soon as this element shows, or as soon as you can see here, it'll just give you the names of them. I know this looks messy because it's code, but you don't necessarily have to understand the code. It's only a matter of saying, okay, I need an element class for this section to make it fire. Google Tag Manager is telling you that. It'll probably even tell you what exactly it is, but you can also go in here to find that data before going in. So if you're getting more familiar with Google Tag Manager, you're starting to understand what these different sections look like, you can use this inspect tool to get a little bit more out of that as well. So then once your conversions are populated into Google Ads from Google Tag Manager, what you'll see here is that as they populate, you can monitor them closely. So over here on the left, I've selected search terms. So this is a search term report for this particular client who has lots of different keywords here. I've blocked those out just for their own sake. But you can see here their conversions, their conversion, the cost per conversion, the conversion rate, the campaign type. So I can make decisions based off these. So I can see here that this competitors group is not performing very well. The conversion value is much, much lower, and the conversion value per cost is lower than the others. Now, typically that is still quite a good one, but you can see how it's underperforming in comparison to the others. Same with this one, it is performing a little bit lower. So I can see that how different keywords are creating value for the business, and I can make decisions based on the back of that. Now, vast majority of these conversions are quite low cost, so it's not having a huge impact. But if I really wanted to drill down and really optimize into the highest value conversions, I can use this data to do so. And that is what you're trying to do with your conversion management. You are just trying to always be whittling down which search terms are the most high performing for your business, which ones are wasting your time, wasting your budget, and continuously optimizing. This is all part of that process of continuous improvement. So you are always going into the account, you are always looking at your conversion data, you are always changing things up in order to get the most out of it as well. There can also be data discrepancies within Google Ads, which can be bothersome, more so than anything. But large data discrepancies can sometimes arise in Google Ads reporting. Sometimes they're smaller, and typically that's dependent on your business size. I mean, if you're a smaller business, naturally the data discrepancy is going to be smaller than if you're in a big business. But these discrepancies can be caused by a variety of things, so it's just important to be aware of them. So if you start seeing these data discrepancies, that you can go in, monitor, and adapt and change accordingly. So here are some possible ones. Google Ads reporting conversions on the date of the ad impression, whereas many other reporting tools attribute them to the date of conversion. So that goes back to your window that you're looking at, the click-through window or the viewing window. So if you are monitoring them differently in Google Ads to a different platform, you're going to see different conversion data there. Your conversion tracking tag set up. So if you have set up your tracking inaccurately, that is going to naturally cause a data discrepancy. It also might be around how long it's taking your customers to convert. If you have a much longer lead time, for example, Google Ads may never actually clock the conversion. So say, for example, if you're a lead business who requires to pick up the phone afterwards, they're not going to track that the whole way through. So you're only tracking as far as the lead, and then you have a different system tracking in the conversions and things like that. So you need to look at what data you're able to look at as well in terms of how long it takes your customers to convert. Cross-device conversion tracking can also pose problems. So say, for example, you started your research on a desktop and then you switch to mobile, or you start on a mobile and switch to desktop. That can cause confusion there as well. Also, your view through conversion settings when Google Ads does include view through conversions in conversions column by default. You might look at the removal of invalid conversions. So some conversions are removed if Google detects they may be from spam or other invalid traffic. And duplicate tracking from another platform where the conversion is attributed to both platforms. So say, for example, you had your Facebook ads running, someone clicked on the ad, they came back out and decided to go to their browser and search for you, and then clicked on your ad and made the purchase there. Facebook is going to say, oh, that's my conversion. They clicked through on my ad, and Google Ads is going to say, oh, that's my conversion. They're going to click through. They clicked through on my ad. So that can happen as well. So just to be aware of that as well, that can cause some data discrepancy, especially across platforms as well. Just to give yourself the chance to look at both in an effective way. So that's everything for today. Thank you so much for joining us to get started with your conversion tracking. I hope you dive into Google Tag Manager and just get a swing of that. I just think it's such a powerful tool. Whether you're setting up your tracking to feed into Google Analytics, Google Ads, the Facebook Pixel, whatever you need, it's an all-in-one tool essentially. So if you can go in there, look at all of those different triggers, figure out what's firing where in your website in order for you to kind of get the full picture, and then you can start feeding it into the different platform via their tags. So you can do a lot with Google Tag Manager, and it's hugely important as part of your setup process with Google Ads. If you have any questions after the session today, as always, feel free to ping me in Slack, or you can reach out to me at jen@growthuniversity.io. See you next week.